Kathy, are you live?
Yep, I'm live.
I forwarded all those ordinances to everybody.
Okay, great. Yeah, they came in really late, so.
Well, he called me.
Bring a background on.
What's that?
I said in a very appropriate background.
Yeah, it's one day late, but it's still okay.
Yeah.
I'll be back. See, I made it. So anybody having fun today?
No.
Sorry.
So what's your definition of fun?
Something warm and comfortable and hopefully involves hot chocolate.
That's awesome.
I think that's reasonable. This. Okay. I really think this one ordinance for the no parking on the South McLean. I was driving in town yesterday, and
Kathy?
yeah.
Yeah, just make sure you're not talking any business before the meeting starts.
No, this was a personal comment. I live on South McLean.
If it's about village business, you don't talk about it until the meeting starts.
Hi, Pat.
Evening all.
Hey, guy.
Hey, Pat.
Hello.
Hey, Sarah?
Yeah.
Thanks for helping the fire department out this afternoon.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
They had a lot of issues getting it going, so I don't know if they ever got it going right or not.
Yeah, I was actually there with them when they were trying to get it going. I was back there tonight again, and before this meeting, we got it going about 6:20, so they actually got it going, so they were good.
Well, they had audio going, but no video.
Yeah, it was tied to, the original issue was a Wi-Fi issue where they tried to stream it from first, and then I took them up to the firehouse and got it started. But due to camera issues up there, we couldn't get the camera, but at least everybody could hear what they were talking about. So,
And then about 6:30, a college from someplace cut into the session, and some professor was giving a class or something. So,
really?
yep, it was real interesting.
That's weird. Wonder how that happened.
Dale, have you got your flag ready?
I do.
Okay.
I do. That's if everything works. Here we go. We'll wave it.
Oh, man. It is windy out.
That's high speed.
Jeff, nice background.
Thank you. Well, thanks, Sonia. I wouldn't know how to do it.
Waiting for the clock to roll to 7 and then we'll start.
There we are.
All right, 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and start. Call the meeting to order. We always open the meeting with the flag, with the pledge. So if you'll please all stand and face the flag and join me with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America,
and to the republic which it
for which
stands,
it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty
and
and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everybody. All right, Ellison, will you please call roll?
Dave Bruglag.
Was that me?
Yep.
Yes, I'm here.
Joe Boyd.
Here.
Kathy Brooks.
Here.
Jim Campbell.
Here.
John Gibson.
Here.
Bill Morris.
Here.
Adam Grady.
Here.
Okay, first item on the agenda for now is consent agenda. There's quite a bit. We have open meetings from 4 meetings and 1 closed session meeting, and we have the treasurer's report from Sarah. Before we do any votes or motions, does anybody have any questions on the minutes? We'll hit those first. All right, I do want to thank Allison. There was a lot of minutes to put together and she got them out in time for us to review, so thank you, Allison. How about questions on the treasurer's report? Okay, if nobody has any questions, will anybody make a motion to approve?
So made.
Okay, was that from Pat or Grady?
Yes.
Okay, do we have any seconds?
I'll second it, Joe.
Okay, Joe Boyd seconded. Is there any additional questions or discussions? If not, Allison, please take roll call.
Joe Boyd.
Yes.
Kathy Brooks.
Yes.
Jim Campbell.
Yes.
John Gibson.
Yes.
Bill Morris.
Yes.
Excuse me, Pat O'Grady.
Yes.
All right, first item under my agenda is a public hearing on the land swap with Steve and Judy Lampert. I've asked Pat McGrath to lead this portion of the meeting, so Pat, it's all yours.
Thank you. So there's a bit of a procedural quirk here that unfortunately is going to need us to continue this one more time. There was a communication issue between me and my assistant I discovered in getting final preps done for tonight. She was holding for me to get her the Zoom meeting link so we could include that in the publication for individuals on how to participate in the meeting. One of these quirks about going to electronic meetings. And so our required notice didn't get published because of a miscommunication in my office. It's entirely my fault. You have my utmost apologies. And this is one I definitely like to put to bed, but unfortunately, we're going to need to continue this once more so we can be sure the appropriate notice gets in a quill. I'll work with Sarah for your next meeting to make sure we have a link. We'll probably have to schedule the meeting. And I don't know, Sarah, if you know the logistics of how far out you can schedule one, but we'll probably need to have a link, 3 weeks or more ahead of the meeting so that I can include that in my notice. I didn't ask you for that. This is a mistake entirely of my fault. So I'm not suggesting there was anything I didn't get that I asked for, but just one of the quirks about the publication is normally we publish and say this is where the meeting is physically, and instead we got to say this is where it is digitally. So, unfortunately, I need a motion to continue that hearing to your next regular meeting, and then we can take care of publication. I'll work with Sarah for details on that.
All right, will anybody make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
And
About
I'll
a
second it.
Okay, so we have a motion to continue the meeting until our next regular scheduled meeting, which will be our meeting in June. Do we have any questions or discussion?
Who was the second?
Go ahead, Allison.
Who seconded it?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Dave, you sent out a couple documents and the one was about a sewer system or something. Is the sewer system like stay on the property that we're getting or something? Is that what's going on?
I can address that.
Okay.
One of the things that we've that's included in the agreement with Mr. Lampert is the opportunity for him to have an easement to install a septic system on the property the village is receiving. So that's a part of the swap is he gets an easement that allows him to, in the future, potentially put a septic system on the green space we're acquiring.
Okay, it's not that there's one there now, it's that if he wants to put one in the future.
That's exactly correct. Yep.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? If not, Allison, please take roll.
Joe Boyd,
Yes.
Kathy Brooks,
Yes.
Jim Campbell,
Yes.
Don Gibson,
Yes.
Bill Morris,
Yes.
Pat O'Grady.
Yes.
Okay, and Pat, then I assume you'll be able to attend our next regular meeting in June.
Yep.
And then go ahead and work with Sarah on getting that set up. We understand this is new to all of us, so there's going to be a few glitches. So we appreciate you working with us and getting this done.
Well, and you certainly have, again, my apologies. It's a mistake entirely my doing. We always try our best to avoid that, and I appreciate your understanding.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, routine work. As far as my view, all of our routine work is getting done. We're still under more or less work from home whenever possible type conditions. And I think the money that's coming in is getting deposited. The water bills are going out. Denny, you don't have any backlog of permits or anything from what I can tell. Jeff, you're getting everything mowed and it's going to get worse with all this rain. So if any of our employees have concerns with this arrangement, please let me know, but it's kind of extraordinary times. And I want to thank everybody for putting forth a good effort on this and keeping the wheels turning here. So thanks to all of our employees. Next item is discussion of compensation for trustees and mayor. When Dan Maffio was mayor, he worked with Pat on revising the ordinance for pay for the mayor and the trustees. And I think I sent that out about a month ago, what the status was. And there were some comments. I think Phil had made some comments that he thought a lump sum payment for the mayor and possibly the board would be better than a payment by meeting. And my opinion is I agree with Phil. I think a lump sum for the mayor is definitely appropriate. Nobody's doing this for the money, so including the trustees. So I don't know what the board wants to do with it, but I think it would be good to switch from the per meeting payment we have now to a flat rate, at least for the mayor.
And from my perspective, that idea is not inconsistent with what a lot of other communities do. When I met with Dan, I would say it's fair to say that he and I had a little bit of a difference of opinion on how to best structure this ordinance. If you were to maintain a component of pay that's per meeting, my recommendation is per public meeting with an agenda and minutes, and that falls within the scope of a meeting under the Open Meetings Act. It becomes relatively difficult to administer if your per meeting pay includes meetings for which there is really no public record that it existed. So, if I think either on the trustee side, going to a monthly rate or going to per public meeting pay, and if you need to increase that to account for the fact that you're going to have time outside the public meetings, I think that's appropriate. But it seems to me a relatively difficult ordinance to administer if a meeting is defined broadly enough to include gatherings outside of an open public meeting. But certainly this is a policy choice for the board. And you have a little bit of time to still think about it, but this is something we don't want to let slip away. And we have a deadline that's based upon the date of the next terms commencing. And so I appreciate Dave bringing it forward for your consideration. And again, my statements are perspective from other communities, and my concerns on implementation. This is pure policy for the board.
What type of rate are you looking at? Do you have something in mind?
I don't have anything in mind. If you took what's the 150 a meeting and multiply it by 12 months, whatever that would work out to be, I'd be fine with it. I'd be fine with anything, Kathy.
Okay, well, like you said, none of us are in this for the money because you're not going to get rich on it.
Right.
But I was asking because one of the meetings Dan brought up that the city of Farmersville was getting like $125,000 a year, city manager or mayor, and it was like that's way out of line for us.
Well, I kind of like that.
Well, yeah.
I described for Dan the local parallels as the pay being more an honorarium, kind of meaning it's not proportionate to the work involved, and it's not supposed to be a full-time job or even an hourly rate. You guys all put in much more time than what your pay fairly compensates you for. I think my prior discussions with Dan, he had larger numbers in mind than what I think anybody presently has in mind. He never told me 100,000 plus, but I know he was envisioning, not insubstantial. I know he had talked north of $10,000 a year as a mayor's salary with me at some points in time.
Yeah, well, I personally, I don't care how we're paid. If it would be more simpler for the mayor to be paid one lump sum, I have no issue with it, though I think the board should probably discuss that.
Is that something, Pat, that can be discussed in closed session?
No, it cannot.
Okay.
And one of the reasons is because the pay increases you're discussing will not begin during any of your terms. So the mayor's pay increase would take effect on the beginning of the term starting next spring. And the trustees, it would be any trustee beginning a new term thereafter. So it's not permissible to increase pay during the term of an existing official who's voting on that measure. So yeah, this is open session only.
Maybe we should add that to the agenda for June. So everybody has.
We can do that. That'll give everybody more time to think about it.
Yeah.
All right, you want to continue this in June then?
That's what I would go for, so that everybody has a chance to think about it. Maybe contact another board member for one-on-one keeping it out of the open meetings scope.
Okay, so we'll put that on the agenda then for June and discuss it again in June. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the status of the grant. After about 3 tries and countless emails, I finally have the DUNS information updated. DUNS is one of the numbering systems that the government uses. That is correct. And I had to call the Illinois EMA group yesterday to find out why they hadn't responded to my initial application. And they looked it up and said, oh, it's been overlooked. So they sent me a response yesterday. So the ball is back in my court. And I'll be working with Sarah to get things put together as far as the stuff we're going to turn in for expenses related to COVID-19 and see if we can recoup some of the money. I think we're probably somewhere $3,500 to $4,500. Does that sound right, Sarah?
That sounds about right, yeah. Actually, it might be a little more than that, depending on what can be covered from the police department, but it should be right around there.
So if you have any late bills, I know Dale, you ordered some masks. Make sure Sarah has a copy of that so we can include that.
That got reimbursed. We didn't get the mask. They sent us an empty package.
I saw that. They're not going to resend them. You have to reorder.
No, they said they don't. They're just going to give us our money back. They said we don't have to send the package back though.
Just so everybody knows, if nobody knows what Dale's talking about, he had ordered masks. He got them shipped today, and he basically got an empty envelope. So he had it videotaped, and he's made contact, so he did get reimbursed for that. So
What's the status of the ones you still have? Do you still have enough for the office people? And
we have enough for ourselves, yes, but we have a low supply, so we'll have to see if we can find some more.
okay, so I ordered some from Walmart not too long ago, and I did get them shipped to me.
Well, good.
How about Danny, Jeff, Sarah, and Carol? Do any of you need masks, or are you still okay?
I'm good. I gave one to Carol as well, so we're both good. I gave one to Jeff. I think he's got one.
Sarah provided me with a couple, so I'm good.
Danny, you still okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Dale, I'll send you a link to what I ordered if you want to try that.
Sure.
And get some more masks that way. There were 50 in the package, so that would be enough to share too. So
Okay.
well, that's where we're at on the grant. On the budget, I want to thank everybody, and especially Sarah, for working through the budget and getting something completed in April that Sarah can send. We'll have the appropriation ordinance for the budget later on, but I think we came out with something that's workable. And I don't know if you've been following in the Panagraph, been reading the shortfalls that other towns are predicting as far as their revenues for the next year or couple years, but we will have to keep on top of that, track our revenues and see how we're doing. As far as the garage sale rescheduling goes, my recommendation to the board is that we wait until the state is opened back up for business and people can at least move freely before we recommend or pick a date for Hudson garage sales. Do we have a consensus on that?
I think that's very reasonable.
Sounds good.
Yeah, right now, gatherings of 10 or more are still not supposed to happen. And there was some additional information put out today by Governor Pritzker. I scanned it. It didn't have any dates or anything like that. And my impression is that we're going to be working from home yet for a while. So put that off and we'll add that on the June agenda. And hopefully by then we'll be able to pick a date, recommend a date for that. Okay, now to the water reports from Water and Public Property, Jeff Waller.
As far as water goes, everything is good. All the samples have been taken for the month. The CCR report, which is a consumer confidence report, went out Friday on the water bill. So there's a little pink sticker on there that led you to the URL with the consumer confidence report. We're all compliant with the EPA and everything's good. So the water side is good. The payments are being taken care of by Sarah and Carol. So the parks have just been pretty much mowing and turn around and mowing some more. We did get the powder coating back for the playground equipment. Got the ladder and the bridge put up on the ship up at the ballpark, and we have to put the metal pieces back together on the one on trimmer. We're waiting on a couple bolts shipped to us for that one. So that's it in water and parks. I want to piggyback on Dave about the trustees and the mayor, and I just want to thank all you guys for the community service that you do. It's not easy. I know it's not easy. You hear more complaints and compliments, and you're not paid enough, and it's just the part of the community service that I like, and I appreciate all you guys do, and I hope the community does too. That's all I have.
On behalf of the board, thanks, Jeff. Anybody have any questions for Jeff? Okay, if not, streets and zoning, Denny.
I'd like to thank Frank for his continuous help with the tree limb up. We had the first one of the season yesterday. That went well. Of course, I've said before, if you ever get a chance to thank anybody, especially Jeff Emmert from the township, for his support and letting us have the landscape recycle bunkers over there on the township. That has been well used this spring so far. So big thanks to those folks over there. I've been very busy with permits and what type question, all the stay-at-home order. I think that gives people a lot of extra time to think about what projects they can do around the house. I was able to get a tile cleaned in the house with the jet we talked about in our last budget meeting. That seems to have been a success at this point. So I'll continue to monitor that area with those folks that live in that neighborhood. The over and that the new Phil has the work and is reviewing as far as the purchase order. It has been actively ordered, and we also received today some maintenance kind of agreement that the dealership offers. And I emailed Phil and I'll met the rest of you folks. So if that's something maybe you're interested in, it's basically a maintenance and warranty program that it looked like to me as I was skimming over it, and what the salesman told me is for excuse me, a yearly fee, we would and any kind of costs that were associated with maintenance and things were pulled from that kind of account, so to speak, a yearly payment we made. And at the end of it, it looked like we would be reimbursed for whatever was. So I may misunderstanding that, but I can question more into that, and I'll send out to the rest of the information on that. I would like to definitely thank Phil for all his help with the drainage issues that have happened in the last week and a half. And according to numbers that I've heard over the past week, somewhere between 9.5 inches that it has received. So that's a lot of rain to try to deal with. Also for Phil for his help with getting the backhoe ordering in process. If anybody has any questions about that's an email. No. The last thing that I have is the farmers market. Hudson is going to start having one of those here soon. We kind of were out that here maybe 3 or 4 months ago, or we are back when we had normal. So I would like to thank Lynn Norris and Pastor Kurt Keller, who spearheaded organizing the committee that's put this together. They're planning. I tried to email out to all the informational packet that they have and the procedures and policies that they're going to have on operation. So they're planning on, I believe, starting Thursday. It'll be Thursday night. They have a Facebook page that'll have maps and diagrams of how things will operate and work. They're going to have things pre-ordered and things like that. So if anybody has any questions on that, they have already started a Facebook page, have publicized something via the Hudson Happenings.
Okay.
And
is anybody besides me getting any kind of echo from Denny?
Yes.
He's cutting out, yes.
Yeah, he's cutting out on me, Dave.
Okay. Let me try and recap at least the farmer's market part. The farmer's market is set to begin Thursday, May 14th from 5 to 7:30. It'll be at the Hudson Methodist Church. The group has a Facebook group called Hudson Farmers Market, and they will be posting additional information there. I think Denny thanked Pastor Kurt Keller, Ryan Esposito, and several other people for getting this organized and started. And personally, I think it's great, and I'm glad to see these people doing it. There will be information on the Facebook on as far as how to drive through with one-way traffic and everything, as long as we're under the lockdown. I know the village or Bloomington had their first farmers market, and I think it went pretty well. And I'm sure ours will go well too. And I encourage everybody to support this effort. I think they will post on Facebook what types of things will be available, and I'm sure it's going to grow over the summer. So stay tuned and support it as best you can.
So I don't know if you guys can hear me better now, but everything that Dave said was correct except the drive-through portion of it. Per the guidelines on that type of essential business industry being related to food, they do have social distancing guidelines in place, but they are planning on having a pre-order area that if people feel more comfortable in pre-ordering and kind of a curbside pickup type thing, but you are going to be able to visit the vendor per the guidelines that are recommended to that industry by the health department.
Thanks, Denny, for clarifying that. Does anybody have any questions for Denny on the farmer's market or the other information he passed along?
Yeah, just one thing I was curious about that. The block tile, Denny, did you say before that it had been a problem for a while? Was that a new blockage or had that been around for a while?
That area has been a troublesome spot at times in the past.
Do we have anything else like that? And how much did that end up costing to get that done? Was it the 2,000 or was it less? Or
The amount of time that it took us on the estimate per hour that I got, the bill should be less. But there is some more work that I would like to do in that area to put in an additional clean out to make access to that area better, because some of the problems in the past is I haven't been able to find anybody that has had the proper tools to deal with the distance between the clean out. So I was able to kind of get a hold of some of that information and use those tools to get that completed. So I would also like to thank CK Brush and get that remedied.
I mean, do we have any other areas in the town where we think we might have a problem too that we need to do this? I know we put a little bit of money in the budget. I was just curious.
Yes, there is a lot of tiles in town, and as I've been trying to monitor them closely lately, there are other areas that are areas of concern, but nothing quite as bad as that area that at this time.
Okay, thanks.
There are several other drainage projects that I'll be working.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good questions, Joe. Anybody else have questions for Denny? Report from Village Marshal Dale Sparks.
We continue to work. We haven't missed any time at all since the virus has started. Again, we're practicing social distancing. So again, we're trying to limit how much contact we have with the public. So we do limit the contact to necessary only, stay out of the homes, etc. Other than that, the police department's functioning as best as we can be right now, and we'll continue to do so. The monthly report will be mailed to you tomorrow. I'll get it to the Quill as well. Now, will we continue to provide that to the Quill, Dave?
If they ask for it, go ahead and provide it.
Okay, but
if they don't ask, then we're not obligated to send it to them.
Okay, well, I'll get it to Allison and Pat for sure, and I'll include them this time. But other than that, no real issues that I can think of. The vehicles are all running good and ready to move on.
Excellent. Okay. Jeff Thomas is not with us. I know he's at the fire department meeting. How about the sirens today?
Centertown went fine. Seemed a little long, but it was on at the right time.
About the south end?
It went off.
It went off?
Yeah. It rang between 9:59 and 10. So.
Okay. The north end has been doing real well, so I'm going to assume it's not a problem. So I'm going to guess all the sirens worked okay then. Our next report is the citizens hearing, and I failed to tell the residents to let Sarah know if they had anything to say. So Sarah, have we got any residents online?
Yeah, we have 9 watching. I actually have a couple comments. I put it out on
Okay.
YouTube.
We'll come back to the citizens hearing in 5 or 10 minutes. If any of the citizens out there would like to comment or ask questions, please set up a chat session with Sarah, the administrator. And Sarah will relay that to the board, and then we'll return to this item in about 5 or 10 minutes. If you do want to comment, we need your name and address, just like you would if you signed in prior to a regular meeting. So we're going to go on and come back to that. Next, we have our trustee reports, finance, budget, contracts, and employees. Don?
Everything's running smoothly and everything's doing well. So I've got nothing to report right now.
Okay. How about street department? Phil?
He just texted he's lost contact with the meeting. He's trying to rejoin right now.
Okay. We'll come back to streets. Let's wait till Phil's on before we get into Kathy's stuff. because we're going to be talking about ordinances. So,
All right, he's trying now. Hang on just a second.
For water, I did finally get our 440,000 gallon guy to sign that agreement. And I never did even talk to Carol or Jeff afterwards. Hopefully Carol got it off her chair. And I don't know, Jeff, have you ever talked to Mr. Gray? Has he ever asked for the water to be turned back on yet?
Hasn't asked for it to be turned on yet.
Okay. When I got him to sign it, he still hadn't had time to work on it, he said. So
Yeah, it's been processed. That agreement's been processed through Carol. So
okay, cool.
We're just waiting on the first payment from him. Yeah, he told me that he probably wouldn't turn it on right away anyway. So
okay, thanks.
okay, good. Okay, Phil, welcome back. We are done with Don's report, and we are now to streets. Phil, do you have anything for streets?
Denny pretty well covered everything. I just wanted to thank Denny for all his help on that project that CK Brush opened up that tile line. It was a great idea to use them. And hopefully in the future, if we have any other lines that need cleared, we can use them. And I think that's a really good process of trying to unblock a tile. So, and then thanks for all his help on getting the budget figures together, as well as Sarah, and working with the backhoe, the snow blades, etc. So that's about all I have.
Okay, and I want to add, Danny, I've also gotten several compliments from residents in the area about your dedication to getting the job done right, and how that's going to be helpful to them. So thank you, Danny.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, next we have ordinance and zoning, Kathy Brooks.
Yeah, there's a couple of ordinances and a couple of things to bring to the board's attention and cheering the village. We'll start with the appropriations ordinance. Everyone should have had a chance to review it. It's basically putting the budget into ordinance form. I'd like to put that forward for approval.
Is that a motion you're making?
That's motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the appropriations ordinance for the budget. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Go ahead.
Okay, we have a second from Jim. Allison, are you still? There you are. Did you get all that, Allison?
I was blocked. I
Okay.
don't know what happened.
So we have Allison, we have a motion from Kathy Brooks and a second from Jim Campbell to approve the appropriations ordinance for the budget.
And who did you say the second was? Jim Campbell?
Yes.
And Kathy, that ordinance number is 1335.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, are there any questions or discussion on the appropriations ordinance? Not, Allison, please do roll call.
Joe Boyd,
Yes.
Kathy Brooks,
Yes.
Jim Campbell,
Yes.
Don Gibson,
Don, I couldn't hear you.
Yes, I'm fading in and out here.
Phil Morris,
Yes.
Pat O'Grady.
Yes.
Okay. Kathy, how about the parking ordinance?
Okay, the parking ordinance is listed as a single item, but it's actually, there's two ordinances. One is the left turn for the school, at the school, and the other is the parking ordinances on South, the no parking on the curve. It's different locations on South McLean Street. So for the parking, no prohibited parking, I would like to make a motion to approve that ordinance.
Have you got a list of the areas where that applies? Is that in the ordinance?
Yes, it is.
You please read that.
All right. Unlawful for anyone to park a vehicle, yada, yada, yada. on the east side of South McLean Street between the north intersection of Pheasant Lane and South McLean Street and the south intersection of Pheasant Lane and South McLean Street, as well as on the north and east side of South McLean Street between the south intersection of Whitetail Lane and South McLean Street, and a point on South McLean Street equidistant to the west line of the right-of-way of Bluebird Court and the east line of the right-of-way of Mallard Way.
Thank you. So that's basically where we got the signs up now.
Yes. That it's where the signs are now. On the, basically there's two big curves that are sloping.
Right.
On South McLean.
And then where it empties onto Broadway.
Yes, on the very south side.
Right. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Phil Morris to implement the no parking bans as Kathy listed. Is there an ordinance number for this, or does this just get added to the existing ordinance?
I assume there's an ordinance number. Is that correct, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay, so it's 1336.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to pass the no parking ordinance 1336 in Havens. Is there any additional discussion or questions?
So where did
Not Allison, I'm sorry.
Where did we end up on the Havens ones? Just on the inside corners, or what?
It's actually Prairie View, not Havens, as you stated.
Correct.
Dave.
Thank you, Denny. Yeah, I said the wrong subdivision.
Okay, so this is just the Prairie View ones?
This is just Prairie View.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? Not Allison, please do roll.
Joe Boyd,
Yes.
Kathy Brooks,
Yes.
Jim Campbell,
Yes.
Don Gibson,
Yes.
Phil Morris,
Yes.
Pat O'Grady.
Yes.
Kathy, do you have that ordinance digitally?
Yes, I have a doc of it. You want
Could
me to
you,
send it?
yeah, could you email that to me?
I sure will. 1, 3, 3, 6. Because there's another one that was originally, we approved it, discussed it last time for the left-hand turn at the school. That is also an ordinance that I would like to make a motion to pass. Basically, what it is just you cannot make it's prohibited to turn left into the parking lot of Clarkson Elementary School off of South McLean Street, because that was the issue with, they were creating unnecessary congestion at the beginning of school for the elementary students.
And for everybody's knowledge, the signs are there. They've been put up by Unit 5, so we can't enforce it until we pass an ordinance.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes, we have to have
So
an
we have a
ordinance.
motion to enact an ordinance to prohibit left turns at the designated point that Kathy talked about. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and second. Is this also a new ordinance or an amendment or what?
This is a new ordinance.
That'll be 1337.
And do you need a copy of this also, Allison?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and second. Do we have any additional discussion or questions? If not, Allison, roll call.
Joe Boyd,
Yes.
Kathy Brooks,
Yes.
Jim Campbell,
Yes.
Don Gibson,
Yes.
Phil Morris,
Yes.
Pat O'Grady.
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay, next item on my list is the 911 readdress issue. I tried to call Brandon Lacey today. I could not get a hold of him because, as I remember, this is supposed to be finalized by July 1st. But due to the COVID-19, I'm wondering if they have postponed this because people aren't getting out and this might influence that. But until I talk to him, I don't know for sure, but it's something that we need to not forget about. Next item is I've sent the scope letter from Farnsworth on the sewer system to everybody. It's just FYI for review. Due to current circumstances, it's highly unlikely we're going to really do much about a sewer system this year. The finances don't appear to be available unless we stumble on some grants or something, which would be great, but lots of people are looking for grants. The last item I have is just a census update. Hudson is at 85% reporting, which is fabulous. And I will surrender the floor unless someone has a question.
Okay, the last item on your agenda was to see if we had any questions for Pat McGrath on the process for handling the violations.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, Pat, I believe I had sent everyone a copy of the response. I wanted to make sure anybody who had questions had the opportunity while we had Pat here, because it seemed to me that things aren't as cut and dried as they, in my mind, should be, but I'm a layman. Pat, I assume you're still hanging out there? Mm-hmm. Okay, because there were differences between what I had sent you as what I thought was happening and what you said is really what the legalities are. Because I thought in there, once the final judgment was done, it was over. And also I thought that there was a possibility that when a citation was issued, it went to you for legal stuff. Sorry. There was a possibility that the resident could negotiate a settlement before they were standing in front of the judge, which by the way I read it, that is not a possibility.
So let me clarify both points. So first on the possibility of a settlement. So first, before the ticket goes to me, individuals who are issued the citation have the opportunity to settle the ticket by paying over the counter at Village Hall. After the ticket goes to me, after we file it with the court, generally the ability to pay at Village Hall largely ends at that point, because once it's filed with the court, I have to go to court, have to appear and report to the court on that ticket. And so we usually from that point forward handle it through the court system. If an individual appears on one of your tickets, before they go in front of the court, they meet with me and we discuss whether the issue is that they contest the ticket and want a trial, whether they don't contest the ticket and want to make a plea bargain, and we kind of work through the process of negotiating that plea. So individuals do have the opportunity to enter into a plea agreement with me, as opposed to just necessarily going before the judge and pleading guilty or not guilty and being subject to whatever fine the judge sets within the range of our code. So apologize for any confusion that was created by my last email in terms of the ability for a plea. If somebody has a compelling circumstance where, and I don't think this has arisen for you, but this is my approach with other communities, and I'm consistent across the board in the number of communities I handle prosecution for. If there is an individual who, for example, had a health issue to where they couldn't get out and couldn't pay the ticket at Village Hall, or they attempted to pay in a timely fashion and were thwarted through causes outside of their own doing, there are times when they show up for a plea bargain, and the deal we reach is I'll continue the case, give them time to pay at City Hall, because that can afford them the opportunity to get the ticket paid and save them the fees that the circuit clerks adds on top of the fine balance that's owed. So occasionally that arises. It's not happened yet for you guys that I can recall. Second part of your statement in regards to, once the judgment's entered, that's the end of the village's involvement. you obtain a civil judgment at the end of the ordinance violation proceeding. So these are considered quasi-criminal, quasi-civil. Those judgments are not self-enforcing. So after a point where the judge says defendant pled guilty, they owe you money, or the defendant is found guilty because they didn't show, or found guilty after trial, and they're adjudged to owe you money, the judge gives them a deadline to pay. And certainly if they pay within that deadline, that's the end of the case. But if they don't, then it's up to the village to pursue collection of that sum. If you take no action, nothing will ever happen with that judgment. It will just lay out there dormant. So I don't believe we've had any, I think we've had maybe a brief amount of work post-judgment on one or more of your tickets. I don't think we've had anybody we've had to chase substantially to the point where we've had multiple post-judgment court hearings. But, I always do my best to be conscientious about both the financial side for the village in terms of accruing cost and the cost benefit, but also mindful of the fact that the teeth of your ordinance system is the fines, and if individuals aren't held accountable to pay those fines, then those teeth are not as effective as we'd like them to be. So those are my responses or clarifications on those two issues.
Okay, so basically, with the assumptions that they were found liable for the fees, it's up to the village to collect it?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I thought it would be paid to the circuit clerk.
The payment goes to the circuit clerk's office, but if the individual doesn't voluntarily appear in the clerk's office and hand over money, the circuit clerk's office doesn't chase after them. The state's attorney doesn't chase after them. The judge doesn't chase after them. The effort to compel someone to go to the clerk's office and to pay those fines is effort the village undertakes, or I undertake on your behalf.
Okay.
So the judge's order says you're responsible to pay this money, and you're correct that the money is paid to the circuit clerk's office. But if an individual does not voluntarily pay that money at the circuit clerk's office, then the issue then my approach is to proceed with necessary post-judgment steps to have the court compel them under penalties of contempt of court to get the money paid or face possible punishments, which could include jail time.
Okay.
So Pat, I have a question for you. So this is Denny, Pat. If the violator calls, emails you as to, I want to try to avoid going to court and have you enter a plea agreement, and there is, of course, costs from you to email, phone call them. Who is responsible for those costs?
Everything, the village pays those costs. So the cost to have me prosecute the cases is the village's.
Is that at all passed on to the violator via part of the cost of the violation?
Only in two ways. First, there is a small portion of the court costs which the judge orders that would be Hudson attorney's fee. If you look at an ordinance violation judgment record through the circuit clerk's office, they have a breakdown of court costs, or at least they used to. Now they've gone to a slightly different fee structure, but historically there's always been a very small amount of that fee that's payable to Hudson as reimbursement for the prosecuting attorney cost. The second way in which the present fine structure the village has in place is the way that structure is intended to recoup your cost is because individuals pay substantially more as their minimum fine once they go to court. So the idea behind your fine structure, and I think, and somebody correct me if your recollection conflicts with mine, but I believe we updated it as a part of some of the work I've done for you to increase your minimum fines. The idea is we have sufficient minimum fines so that across the board, averaging out over the cases I handle for you, the court imposed fines will cover your cost of prosecution. So in other words, you can pay X dollars over the counter or substantially more than X dollars if you go to court. And that substantially more than X dollars is intended to offset your cost paying me.
to you. So then a further question would be, how does that relate then to after the payment is made and they're voluntary to pay, and then it is our/your responsibility to take necessary steps to make sure that payment is made? How is that cost passed on?
Yeah, so there's a lot of that's facts and circumstances based. By the Illinois Municipal Code provides that you can seek to collect your post-judgment attorney's fees from the defendant. However, if you seek to collect the post-judgment attorney's fees, you can ask the judge for a judgment, you can gain a judgment, and then you have to collect the judgment. And the individuals that you spend a lot of time collecting money from after a judgment is entered usually are ones that will be persistently difficult to collect from. So the analogy in some ways is you're in a hole. Is it prudent to dig the hole deeper in order to get out of the hole? Because, from a cost management standpoint, if we spend 2 hours post-judgment on one defendant trying to get them to pay their $150 fine plus court cost, you've lost money on that prosecution. If your direction was, we want you to recover those 2 hours, we paid you to prosecute that ticket, then you're going to have cost incurred for me to file a petition with the court for post-judgment attorney's fees under statute and code. And then we're going to be back trying to get more money from the same defendant who struggled to pay the first $250. So for the other municipal clients I represent, none have me seek recovery of post-judgment attorney's fees, because if the objective is for that to be a financially successful proposition for the village, it generally is not. Usually that just involves more cost to the village as opposed to less.
Thanks.
Your policy of not issuing permits until fines are paid is another way of making them pay if they're wanting to do work or have something done in the village. And also, if we have court scheduled, Pat, you're there on our behalf, whether they show up or not, right?
Yeah, if we have a date certain with the defendant, I have to appear on that date. The defendant doesn't appear, then we take a default judgment against them. But if you have a ticket you sent to me to prosecute, I filed it with the court, I have a professional obligation to be present before the court on that date and time.
Yep.
And what we do in an effort to help control costs for the villages, I have the same date I use for all of my McLean County municipalities. And so if I go for 3 different communities, then I split my bill a third for the basic time of going and being there. Because usually it's only a matter of minutes allocated between different defendants. And so that's always been the way I try to handle it in a way that seems fair to all. So.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Pat.
Appreciate that. Thanks,
Pat, this is Phil. Another form of recourse, if the ordinance violator is a homeowner, we would always have the right to file lien if they hadn't paid the fine, correct?
That's correct. It's a civil judgment you obtain, so we can file a memorandum of judgment, which is a lien against all property that defendant owns in the county, which would include their home. And if they had other property, it would include that property as well. That memorandum of judgment is what we usually do is file it and then wait. And at some point in time, they're going to sell their home or refinance or otherwise, desire to get that lien scrubbed from title. So absolutely, That is within our bundle of rights.
Okay. Otherwise, if it was a contractor with an ordinance violation, we would just have the recourse of not issuing further permits.
That's correct. And I think honestly, what I'm guessing, the only work I can, and you guys, you correct me if I'm wrong, and I guess it's not material, but I think the only time I've had any that I can recall recently post ordinance violation judgment work on one of your cases was for a local contractor who needed to get their fine paid so they could get a permit. So that has proven to be an effective strategy in the past, and they called me wanting to figure out how to get it taken care of. So that is another effective tool that is at your discretion.
Okay. Well, we just wanted to know where we stood with all that. Thank you.
Fundamentally, I work for you. So, you guys give me direction on how you want to proceed. And that's the way I proceed, subject to the limitations of the law. So the way I indicate that I historically handled things is, consistent with kind of my standard MO, so to speak. But, if there's something I could be doing better or more consistent with what the village expects on these ordinance violations, you don't offend me in any way to give me supplemental direction to so that I can always ensure I'm doing things the way you guys want them done.
I
Okay.
appreciate your guidance, Pat.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. Like I said, I was trying to figure it out because it sounds bad. I don't deal with legal as much as I possibly can. And there's members on the board that probably have no idea what the procedure is, even what's going on. And I appreciate your time explaining that.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks, Pat. I have one additional question. Do you or somebody in your office track whether or not the fines are actually paid?
Yes, we do. I have a legal assistant who works with me to monitor judgments. And so when I come back from court, we diary reminders in our system to follow up with the court's records to see if the defendant's paid by the date they were ordered to pay. And if they haven't, then we initiate contempt proceedings against that defendant. So
Okay.
yes, we do.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that was something we weren't responsible for doing. Dale, did you have something?
No, I'm satisfied. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, does anybody else have questions for Pat on this process? I think you did a great job explaining it and we appreciate it. Thanks, Pat.
My pleasure. I'm always glad to answer questions. That's what I'm here for.
Okay, next item on the agenda is our police department, Pat O'Grady.
I have nothing to add to Chief Sparks' report, but thank him and Tom for continuing to carry out their duties in this very difficult time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, water department, Joe Boyd.
No, nothing other than what I already talked about.
Okay, it sounds like you made good progress with the one account that's delinquent.
Yeah, hopefully we just get our money now.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Public property, Jim Campbell.
Just with the parks, we really can't start ball games or anything like that, practices. We might want to think about allowing more people to be able to come to the parks. But other than that, there's not really a whole lot we can do with it.
Okay. I did scan Governor Pritzker's announcement today, and he is looking at breaking the state into 4 zones.
Yes.
Zones would be treated differently.
But we're with Rockford, so.
Point of clarification there, too, on the governor's order from what I've read so far. He announced, it's not in the written press release, I don't believe, but he announced at his press conference that he proposed kind of a 5-stage path to restoration. And it's my understanding that he announced that no region will move beyond step 2 prior to the end of the current executive order on May 28th. Right. So it doesn't appear the regionalized approach will, at least in the short term, allow for more relaxation locally than Chicago.
And what was the date, Pat? The end of the month?
Yeah, May 29th, I believe.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go back to the public portion. Sarah, did anyone comment to you?
Yes, we've got comments. The first one I have is from Jeffrey Bathe. He says, I want to let the board know that the SEMCL Travel Softball and Baseball Leagues has not officially made a decision regarding this season. However, based upon the comments from the governor's briefing today, it seems that things are going to be decided for them. The Lions Club will be discussing rookie and T-ball season at our meeting today. I'll be emailing Jeff by midweek with an update. So
okay, so part of the time you cut out, I assume that was Jeff Boyd.
It's Jeff Bathe.
I'm sorry, yeah, Jeff Baith. And the first part, the SEMCL League is not decided yet.
Right. He said they have not officially decided yet. However, based upon the comments from the governor's meeting today, it seems that things are going to be decided for them. The Lions Club will be discussing rookie and T-ball at our meeting next Monday. I will be emailing Jeff by midweek with an update.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff Baith, for the update.
And then I have 3 different comments from Wayne Krebs. His first one, I'll go ahead and read it and let the board respond. His first one is, why are we entertaining compensation for the village board if nobody cares if they are compensated? What is the advantages/disadvantages of pursuing this? That was his first question.
Okay, Wayne, I'll try and take a shot at answering part of that. I think historically, village board members and mayors have always been compensated somewhat. I know I have a few expenses that I go through to be mayor that I pay for out of my own pocket. And I certainly am hoping that I will get compensated for those. But are you suggesting we should all work for free? Well, that's not a fair question either. I'm sorry, Wayne.
Can I jump in, Dave, to help out here? Illinois law requires you to adopt an ordinance establishing the compensation of elected officials. The last time the compensation of elected officials was set by several boards ago, that procedural requirement that the compensation was fixed by ordinance was overlooked. And so when I was asked about what the proper compensation of the mayor is and the trustees by Dan, that led me to discover that issue and recommend to the village that you need to, regardless of how much you want that compensation to be, you need to adopt an ordinance fixing your compensation, even if it's to say it's the same as what was set many years ago, but to fix a procedural hiccup that was overlooked the last time compensation was set. So that's the reason for the discussion, is because in the recommendation of your legal counsel, you have to adopt an ordinance of this nature, at the very least fix procedural hiccup from last time.
Okay, Sarah, what was his second question?
I'm going to go ahead and skip down to his third because it kind of goes along with his first question. Again, Wayne Krebs, what are the yearly expected costs for the village board compensation package?
I think we budgeted, Sarah, you've got the numbers right there, isn't it? $1,500 a trustee?
Yes.
And what was the mayor's?
I believe the mayor's was $4,800. I don't have my budget pulled up right now since it's not a budget meeting.
Okay.
I believe it is $4,800 for the mayor.
Okay. And what's the other question?
His third question is, what is the progress on getting the large water bill paid for the burst pipe in a residence that was talked about last month?
Okay, Joe, would you please recap that?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about before. We put him on a payment plan. It was a pretty large bill, for an accidental problem on a property that he's fixing up. So he's working on trying to improve Hudson by improving a property in Hudson. And we have a signed agreement where he's going to pay, or, if he misses a payment, we cut his water off again. So it'll happen over the next few months that we got our money back.
Great.
He just sent another one, Dave. So Wayne Krebs again says, so what is the current compensation versus what is proposed?
Proposed is under discussion. The current is per meeting, so much compensation per meeting. I don't have the exact amounts in front of me, but we're looking at just changing it to a flat rate.
A flat rate per year.
Per year, thank you. Wayne, feel free to email Sarah or myself or any of the board members too, if we're not answering your questions adequately, rather than wait until the next month. And I'm glad you were able to join. Sarah, have you got questions from anyone else?
Nope, that's it.
Dave, if I could jump in, I found my notes on what the prior board action was. The last time, and Allison did a lot of legwork to find this for me back in May of last year. The last time trustee compensation was set by the board was September of 2008. And the vote was made to set the trustees' pay at $75 per meeting and the mayor's pay of $150 per meeting. And the understanding at that time from a historical perspective is that a meeting was not limited to a public meeting of the Board of Trustees, but rather other gatherings outside of a formal agenda, minutes, open meetings act, scope meeting. But that was the action from September of 2008.
Thank you. Okay, Sarah, did you have any other questions from the public?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the Liquor Commissioner report. I have no report. We have got contacted unofficially by a lawyer who's representing Casey's about the possibility of them putting in gaming machines. And if we are formally contacted, I will bring it to the board to get opinions. So that's all I have as Liquor Commissioner. I don't have any agenda to go into closed session. Does anybody have anything we need to discuss in closed session? If not, there's no closed session for tonight. Before we adjourn, does anybody have any official, anything else to bring up? If not, I can tell some of you are reading the letters from IML every day on the COVID ID 19 statuses. There's a lot of good information that IML puts out. I am really glad Hudson has joined that. And it's been a great source of information for me. And I highly recommend the trustees to continue to browse that and keep current with what's information from IML. If nobody else has anything, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion, Joe.
We have a motion from Joe to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Kathy.
Second by Kathy. Okay, Allison, roll call.
Joe Boyd,
Yes.
Kathy Brooks,
Yes.
Jim Campbell,
Yes.
Don Gibson,
Yes.
Bill Morris,
Yes.
Pat O'Grady.
Yes.
All right. I want to thank everybody for attending and thank the public for attending. And you guys stay safe out there. And thanks everybody for doing a great job. Thank you.
Bye.
You know.